Alrighty, folks, welcome back. This is part two to our S&OP video series. On part one, we covered career paths in S&OP. Today, we'll be talking about recruiting in S&OP. I'm Brian Kennedy. I'm the marketing manager here at SCM Talent Group, and today I've been joined by Rodney Apple, our founder and CEO, and Jordan West, our executive recruiter, who specializes in supply chain planning. So let's dive right into it. Jordan, how do you actually go about finding S&OP talent?
I think the first thing that is, as far as identifying and finding talent is really building relationships with that talent and understanding what their goals and what their expertise is in specifically. So that way you can obviously know where to take them and give them the best opportunity possible that's a fit for them and what they want to do. And I think, again, diving into the fundamentals of recruiting and finding those people who, again, have similar goals and obviously have similar experience that'll translate over to the position is, again, first things first. But also, too, specifically in supply chain planning and S&OP, understanding really, again, the details of supply chain planning. And this is where recruiting, I think, is very unique in S&OP and supply chain planning, and that really understanding the back and forth of everything that candidate sees and does is what you're going to need to have and know in order to know where exactly to take and identifying what talent will be a best fit for a client as well. So again, in terms of understanding and identifying talent, really it's all in the details, and obviously all in the details on the technical and professional side, but also on the personal side as well.
So as it relates to how we go about finding supply chain planning and S&OP talent, everything starts with understanding your clients, not just their supply chain organization or how their S&OP is structured. You really got to start from the top and understand the business model, the go-to-market strategy, the different divisions or business units. Are they global? The supplier base, their customer base. How do they get product to the customer? Number of SKUs. So you got to really paint that holistic profile of the company, their overall organization, how their supply chain is structured. Do they manufacture their own products? Do they outsource it? And once we nail that search profile down, we come up with a sourcing strategy. It typically involves direct sourcing for this talent versus advertising, because these people are in high demand, and you're rarely going to find great talent from running some ads in the job boards. So we go after them, and there's several places we look. We start with our resume database. I did a search the other day on S&OP, sales operations planning, integrated business planning, and so forth. And just in our database, we had over 20,000 candidates that have that in their resume. It doesn't mean they're experts in it, but they definitely have knowledge or have experience in S&OP. So we start there. I would also encourage, especially your mid-sized, large employers, to really focus on building out that talent community. We've got different resources, from LinkedIn Recruiter to third-party tools that we use to identify email addresses and contact information. So you've got to have some rich resources to be able to do direct sourcing for candidates. But that is where you must focus your efforts if you're going to find the best supply chain planning and S&OP talent.
Gotcha. Kind of going back towards S&OP talent, what are clients looking for in S&OP talent, really?
Clients are, I think, looking more so for people who come from a planning background, but understand what that environment looks like. And specifically now, what it looks like is these organizations are rapidly changing, evolving, growing. And specifically, too, being able to work across that rapidly changing environment and still be able to work with stakeholders, still be able to evaluate systems and being able to make changes to really improve the overall process. So I think that especially moving forward here in 2020, going into 2021, that type of talent that has the experience dealing with, again, a fast-paced type environment, but also one that can change and grow. That's starting to become something that's important for that client to look for as well.
Yeah, and I would add to that too. A lot of companies are moving from manual-based planning. We talked about that earlier, using Excel and maybe the ERP system as your main tools, to more of that advanced or system-based planning. Candidates that have already worked in an S&OP environment, and since many companies are implementing S&OP for the first time, there's always companies looking for somebody to come in and really help lead that implementation of standing it up. So candidates that have that are going to have a lot of marketability, and they're going to bring a lot of value to an organization. And then on top of that, we talked about skills, competencies are needed, but they're looking for that leadership. And when I say leadership, it's not always about the people management, direct reports, and so forth. It's also about engaging stakeholders, especially those that have fallen off the bus, and getting them back on the bus, because it takes all of your key stakeholders across these functions to be fully engaged. So that change management, leading through complex change, leading through rapid growth, is critical for success. And many of our clients are looking for that full package, both the technical, analytical, as well as the soft skills.
For sure. And kind of going into what the candidates are, what are these candidates searching for when they're looking for S&OP opportunities?
Yeah, going back to, again, kind of marrying up between those, again, fundamentals of recruiting and also S&OP and supply chain planning, candidates are really looking for growth opportunities still. And this group of talent, specifically in S&OP, who now especially find themselves in a more corporate environment, they want to see more challenges. They want to see new things. I think talent, when they start looking for new jobs, they're not necessarily looking for new companies. They're looking for new things that they can take on and new problems that they can solve. On top of that, being able to work with companies that are growing, that are starting to have, again, a robust supply chain organization. And I will say, as far as supply chain planning goes in S&OP, one thing that talent, when they go into interviews and they evaluate a company's whole, and the, again, hiring team that they're with, is how the communication is and how open those lines are in communication, whether it be to the plant, whether it be to suppliers, whether it be to the team that they're leading. That's something that, again, something else candidates are looking for that stable environment from a day-to-day standpoint. And again, going back to what we keep bringing up in a lot of these S&OP topics, the technical analytical challenges. Again, you're starting to see more and more people who want to play a bigger hand in evaluating those systems, implementing those systems. So finding a way to capitalize off their experience and jump in that time environment is starting to be something that candidates are looking for specifically now as well.
Yeah, 100% agree. And the only thing I would add is that candidates are looking, coming into a place where they can learn, so culture of learning, and I would also say continuous improvement, so they're not just happy with the status quo. And they're also looking for that support from the very top. S&OP oftentimes can fail if you don't have the stakeholder engagement across the different functions, from sales, marketing, through the supply side, but also the C-suite really needs to be involved and be supportive. We have definitely seen our fair share of S&OP programs fail because you didn't have either the stakeholder engagement or you didn't have that critical support from the C-suite. So candidates are asking us, what's the level of maturity? What's the level of support? Those are the questions they're asking. Is the organization ready? Sometimes people want to put S&OP in place like the cart before the horse, before they have solid fundamentals and practices and processes in place on the demand and supply planning side. So you kind of need to get that in order before you can layer in S&OP on top. So having that commitment and support is critical, and that's definitely what candidates are looking for these days.
Staying on the topic of candidates, how may these S&OP candidates make themselves stand out from the crowd?
I think candidates who can go into their resume and be clear and concise on their experience and really highlight the unique challenges that they face is going to be a big key for folks to getting their foot in the door for an interview. So many times we see resumes that do a great job of highlighting their results and highlighting their their accomplishments, but even getting down to the nitty-gritty of SKU counts and lead times and specific technologies that they've used, not just as a category itself at the end of the resume, but getting into that detail specifically on the bullet points that really represent their experience. You're starting to see more and more of that become more important as companies are looking to candidates and talent from other industries specifically to jump into their S&OP organization, where maybe not necessarily the exact type of product, but the same type of challenges. And that's something that's starting to creep up now in the market for hiring managers when they evaluate talent. So I think that, again, all comes down to those kind of specifics, but obviously being heavy on the networking, certainly staying up to date on LinkedIn and staying up to date on the folks that they work cross-functionally with is, again, another thing that candidates can do to help themselves kind of stand up from a relationship standpoint as well.
Yeah, and I would just add, it's critical these days with the evolving nature of systems and technologies and supply chain, from AI to machine learning and blockchain and so forth, paying attention to the trends, learning as much as you can in terms of best practices. And I think you can do that through joining these professional associations like IBF, ASCM, and the like. And don't just join, make sure you volunteer, you try to contribute to the success of the organization, because it's all about learning and networking, from one another. And I would also say, just like supply chain is all about adding value, planning is very much about adding value as well. It can definitely make or break and really improve margins and your inventory positioning. And obviously satisfying your customers is critical. So you want to be able to articulate that on your resume and in your interviews. What value did you bring to the organization? Because it's not all about what you did. It's about, the value and being able to quantify that in percentages, dollar signs, and so forth. So just be prepared if you're entering a job search or you're looking at a promotion. Make sure that you're tracking down your accomplishments, and you can speak to those whenever you get in front of a hiring team.
For sure. Well, folks, that wraps up part 2 of our video series covering S&OP. Thank you, Rodney and Jordan, for joining me today. If you missed our first video, be sure to check that out. We covered career paths in S&OP. And again, today we covered recruiting in S&OP. Everyone have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.